The roar of the dark storm swallowed the horizon, ripping through the skies with purple lightning as the clouds spun like a hungry vortex. From above, Lyra Phelan watched the floating city tremble, its energy pillars flickering under the destructive force closing in. The wind whipped through her short hair, and the metallic taste of danger lingered in the air. She tightened her grip on the sword's hilt, feeling the crushing weight of responsibility pressing against her chest. The last aerial fortress was all that remained of humanity. If it fell, there would be nothing left but ruin. The central base shook and sirens blared like desperate screams. Civilians ran for shelter while resistance troops spread across the outer platform, bracing for impact. General Cashin, a battle-hardened veteran with scars that told dark stories, placed a heavy hand on Lyra's shoulder. "If this city falls, there's no coming back from it," he said, his deep voice barely rising over the howling wind. She nodded, speechless. The first strike hit like a punch to the world's gut. The dark storm wasn't alone. Black warships emerged from the clouds, floating like predators in the shattered sky. Night warriors leaped from their vessels, gliding through the air with energy blades, their eyes burning with a malevolent red glow. Lyra's heart pounded. The enemy wasn't just here to destroy, they were searching for something. Or someone. With a battle cry, she charged. Her blue blade sliced through the air, striking fast against the invaders. Metal clashed, sparks danced in the darkness, and the heat of battle surged through her veins. The scent of ozone and smoke filled her lungs, and every movement was a mix of skill and pure instinct. Amidst the chaos, something caught the corner of her eye, a different enemy standing atop the wreckage of a destroyed tower, watching her with an intense gaze. He wore an ornate black armor, his flowing cape cutting through the wind like it was part of him. When their eyes met, a crushing pressure gripped Lyra. Her mind was yanked away, visions exploding in her head. Cities swallowed by shadows, a blue flame burning at the world's core, a figure that looked like her, but wasn't. A distant voice echoed in her mind, "You are the eternal flame." The shock made her hesitate and the enemy moved. In the blink of an eye, he was upon her, his dark blade aiming straight for her chest. Lyra barely managed to block, her knees buckling under the force of the strike. Her head spun. Who was he? And what did that vision mean? The sky roared above them, and a lightning bolt split the ground between them, forcing them apart. The city was coming apart. Cashin shouted orders in the distance, and the surviving resistance fighters fought to keep the invaders at bay, but Lyra knew this wasn't just an ordinary attack. They were after her. But why? Her body trembled with the energy coursing beneath her skin, something unknown, something awakening. This battle wasn't just about the city. It was about her. The storm intensified, lightning crashing down like divine spears. Lyra felt the ground vibrate beneath her feet and knew the fortress wouldn't hold much longer. The enemy took a few steps back, the shadows wrapping around him, but his eyes never left her. "We'll meet again, eternal flame," he murmured before vanishing into the storm. The wind howled around her, the scent of destruction thick in the air, but the fire inside her burned hotter than ever. Lyra didn't know what that name meant, but one thing was clear. She wasn't just a warrior. Something inside her was awakening. And for the first time, fear was replaced by something else, the need to uncover the truth. The explosion was deafening. Metal structures shattered like glass, and the floating city tilted dangerously, like a sinking ship. The ground beneath Lyra's feet trembled, and she had to grab onto a twisted beam to keep from being thrown into the abyss. Blasts echoed through the fortress as enemy forces swarmed, tearing through everything in their path. Civilians screamed, resistance soldiers fought desperately to hold the invasion back, but the fate of the last aerial fortress seemed sealed. Cashin fought just a few feet away, taking down enemies with precise strikes, but even he knew they were losing. His eyes met Lyra's for a split second, and he shouted something, but the chaos swallowed his words. She didn't need to hear them to understand. They had to get out, now. A beam of energy shot across the sky, hitting one of the main towers. The impact sent a shockwave that hurled Lyra backward. Her body spun in the air, and for a brief moment, everything slowed. Debris falling, screams echoing, enemy blasts cutting through the darkness. The sky was collapsing, and with it all hope. But then, the fire inside her roared. Heat surged through her chest, spreading through her veins like silent thunder. As her body neared the edge of the shattered platform, Seconds from plummeting, something inside her exploded. A blue flame erupted from her hands and suddenly, her feet weren't touching the ground anymore. She was floating. Adrenaline took over. The wind lashed against her face, but now she wasn't falling, she was flying. Power pulsed through every fiber of her being, like it had been there all along, just waiting to be awakened. Lyra instinctively reached out, and a stream of blue fire shot from her fingertips, slamming into one of the shadow warriors who had been lunging at Cassian. The enemy was engulfed in ethereal flames before he even hit the ground. Cassian's eyes went wide. What the hell was that? Lyra had no answer. But there was no time for questions. The enemy who had called her Eternal Flame was still there, watching from the shadows like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The city was splitting apart, and the last escape route was seconds from being destroyed. She landed beside Cassian, the energy still buzzing under her skin. "We need to get everyone out of here," she shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Cassian nodded and pointed to the only ship left, docked on the lowest platform. But between them and salvation, dozens of shadow warriors emerged, like starving beasts ready to devour the world's end. Lyra clenched her fists, feeling the fire grow. They weren't getting through. The final battle for the last aerial fortress had begun. The ground beneath Lyra's feet rumbled as the metal structure cracked again. The last stable platform of the floating city was breaking apart, crashing down into the endless abyss below. The ship's engines roared like thunder, but the gap between them and survival was still massive, and crawling with enemies. Cassian spun his blades in his hands and shot a quick glance at Lyra. The blue flames were still flickering in her fingers, pulsing like they had a mind of their own. He knew she felt it too, the power surging through her, demanding to be unleashed. There was no turning back now. The first shadow warrior lunged at inhuman speed, black blades gleaming in the firelight. Cassian barely dodged in time, countering with a precise strike that took the enemy down. But for every one that fell, 3 more took its place. The fortress was overrun. Lyra didn't think. She just acted. The energy inside her roared like a storm, and in an instant, blue flames erupted around her. The heat didn't burn her, didn't hurt, it was part of her. With an instinctive motion, she flung the fire forward, creating a searing barrier between them and the invaders. Cassian stared at her, half in awe, half in disbelief. That's not normal. I know. Lyra's voice was steady, but deep down, fear gnawed at her. What had she become? No time for answers. The fire barrier was already fading, and the enemies were still there, ready to rip them apart. The ship was so close, yet the distance felt impossible to cross. Then a violent explosion shook everything. The metal beneath their feet finally gave way, shattering like thin ice. The last bridge to the ship began to collapse. Cassian didn't hesitate. Run. They sprinted across the unstable path, dodging debris that rained down like meteors. Lyra's heart pounded, her lungs burned, the world around her falling apart. But then the bridge to the ship just disappeared. The last chunk of metal crumbled into the void, leaving an impossible gap between them and their only chance at survival. Cassian skidded to a halt just in time, nearly tumbling into the abyss. Shit. Lyra felt the fire ignite inside her, burning hotter than ever. Her whole body felt like a comet on the verge of impact. The last barrier, the final limit. And then she jumped. Gravity tried to drag her down into the abyss, but something inside her said no. Flames exploded from her back, propelling her forward like an arrow. The wind slashed at her face, the heat scorched her skin, but she didn't stop. When she landed on the ship's platform, her knees almost gave out. Her heart pounded like a war drum, but she made it. Cassian, standing on the other side, stared at her, wide-eyed. "Lyra, you flew." She reached out a hand to him. "And so will you." The fire flared up once more, and without hesitation, Cassian jumped. Their future started right there, in a leap into the unknown. The ship's engine roared like a caged beast as it sliced through the stormy sky, leaving behind the wreckage of the floating city. Below them, chaos still burned in glowing embers, a cruel reminder of what they had lost, and what they had discovered. Lyra leaned against the ship's metal wall, her entire body pulsing with an unfamiliar energy. The fire still surged through her veins, but it wasn't just heat. It was something deeper, something she didn't understand. Cassian stepped closer, his eyes still wide with disbelief. "You flew, Lyra." She swallowed hard. I don't know what happened. He knelt beside her, breathless. This isn't normal. No one just does that. The silence between them was shattered by the metallic beeping of the control panel. From the cockpit, Vex yelled, "You two need to see this. Now." Exchanging a final uncertain glance, Lyra and Cassian got up and rushed to the cockpit. The sight waiting for them made Lyra's heart stop for a second. There, on the horizon where only clouds and storms had been before, something glowed in the sky. A symbol burned between the clouds, a circle wreathed in flames, pulsing like a heartbeat. Vex pointed at the radar, his expression grim. "This showed up the moment you awakened." He looked straight at Lyra. "And it's not just a signal. It's a summons." The fire inside her responded. Something in her soul echoed that call, as if recognizing what was happening. The heat rose, and for the first time, Lyra realized it wasn't just energy. It was memory. Flashbacks tore through her mind like lightning. A ruined temple. Voices whispering her name. A hooded figure reaching out. The fire wasn't a newly gained power. It had always been there waiting. Cassian grabbed her arm. "What did you see?" She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the truth burn inside her. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. The beginning of everything. The radar beeped again and the ship lurched. Something was coming. Something that wouldn't let them escape so easily. Vex gritted his teeth. "Whatever this call is, someone doesn't want you to answer it." Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the flames dance in her hands. For the first time, she wasn't running from them. The past was calling, and she was ready to answer. The ship shook violently as it plunged through the turbulent sky currents. Lights flickered on the control panel, alarms blared, and Vex fought to keep the systems in check. Outside, the shadows started to form, twisting and weaving like hungry serpents, closing in on them from all sides. Lyra felt the heat rise on her skin. The energy burned stronger than ever. Each heartbeat pounded like a war drum, echoing the call from the flaming symbol in the sky. Cassian clenched his fists. "This isn't just a storm. There's something waiting for us." Vex tightened his grip on the controls, his jaw locked. "If we want to make it out of here alive, we gotta make a choice. No." But Lyra knew there were no more choices left. The fire inside her had already decided. She turned to the two of them, her eyes glowing in shades of gold and amber. "The only way out is through." Without waiting for an answer, she closed her eyes and focused. The flames responded instantly, wrapping around her hands, her arms, dancing around her like they were part of her very being. Then she stepped forward and raised her hands. Fire erupted in a blinding flash, tearing through the dark veil around the ship. The shadows twisted and screamed, dissolving into the blazing light. The flaming symbol in the sky burned even brighter, like it recognized what was happening. Cassian and Vex stared at Lyra, speechless. But she didn't have time to explain. The heat inside her was expanding, along with the truth she finally understood. She wasn't just someone with a gift. She wasn't just a survivor. She was the answer to the call. And on the other side of the darkness, something was waiting for her. The ship stabilized, the path ahead finally visible. But the feeling in Lyra's chest told her this was just the beginning. Because now the flame was awake. And there was no turning back. The silence inside the ship was almost as deafening as the roar of the storms they had just crossed. Lyra felt the weight of the moment, the truth burning inside her like a newborn star. Something had changed. Not just in her, but in the very fabric of the universe. Cassian looked at her with a mix of respect and unease. What just happened? Vex, still gripping the controls, took a deep breath. "I think she just opened a door no one was ever supposed to open." Lyra didn't answer right away. The answer was inside her, pulsing with the same intensity as the flame that was now part of her. The flaming symbol in the sky was gone, but the call still echoed within her. A call she could no longer ignore. They had crossed the threshold. There was no turning back. And somewhere beyond the darkness, something was waiting for them. Something ancient. Something that recognized the awakening of the flame. Lyra closed her eyes and felt the truth unravel inside her. The journey was only beginning, because some flames never go out. If you like this story, don't forget to drop a comment, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. See you in the next video.